It's ESP.
Most powerful practitioner of psychokinesis and telepathy in the world.
The Eryn Spencer Podcast, your home base away from Mother Base for the outdated references, political humdrum, social commentary, vintage and not so vintage nostalgia that you crave.
Would you rather have a lifetime of regret or an afternoon of mild disappointment?
And of course, that weeb-ish. So without further ado,
Just do it!
let's get this shoe puff luncheon. 3, 2, 1, and we're live. I always look at the You Now camera whenever I do that, but it didn't really make sense this time. So I already did one on mine. I gotta be mindful of that. So welcome to ESP003. A little mic check here. Can you hear yourself okay?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So welcome back, El Newman to radio. It's been a little bit of a hiatus for you, but you are now back.
I know.
Back on the ESP show. So yes, ESP003. We're joined today by El Newman. You identify as non-binary, right?
Correct.
That's what we were talking about for the past 10 minutes or so. Okay,
Yeah.
which is awesome. So obviously, if y'all don't know me, you should. If you're watching this, you probably know who I am. I'm Eryn Spencer. I run the ESP Eryn Spencer podcast. I am a trans woman, and we're here today with a non-binary individual, which is awesome because we haven't had anybody that's non-binary on the show yet. So I'm really excited about this.
Yay.
So we've had another trans girl, a cishet roller derby girl, and then one other cishet girl that's actually, no, she's pansexual. Our third guest was pansexual, right? So we've had only one cisgender heterosexual
But
female on the show.
roller derby is pretty queer in itself.
Yeah.
So that
Well,
slides.
we talked about that. We talked about how roller derby is all-inclusive and how it appeals to a lot of people in the LGBTQIA community.
Nice. Good.
So yeah, so it is kind of queer based. So that was that aspect. So we've had almost everything on the show so far, including today. I think we're pretty good. So we're gonna start by doing a little bio for our guests. That's usually the format. We talk a little bit about just kind of like what our guests are up to, what they're doing in their lives, and then we go into discussion, debate about hot button issues, current events, just a casual chat. And then we go into the hashtag Nerdcast portion of the show at the end of the show.
Awesome.
So it's kind of like a 3-tiered format. So
Love it.
tell us a little bit about yourself. So I know that you are a nursing student right now, right?
Yeah. So I'm.
Okay.
If I pass
is
the
awesome.
semester, I'll be halfway through the program.
Very cool.
Yeah, I'm an accelerated program. I've been working with patients in clinicals since like week 3, and I'm in week 15 million. I don't know. It's been a while now. So yeah, I want to pursue being a nurse practitioner. I'm going to continue after I get my
That is huge money.
RN, then my BSN, then MSN, and then eventually DNP, doctorate in nursing practice.
So you're doing it.
I'm going to go to the top so that no one can tell
Do
me
it.
otherwise. I want to be my own authority, and I also really want to pioneer just queerness in healthcare.
Already giving out high fives, and it's only
needed.
the first 5 minutes of the show. Usually we don't start the high fives until halfway through, but I knew this was going to be a great show, and I'm actually kind of nervous myself for the show just because I'm so excited about having Elle here.
Yeah.
So you are proudly representing the non-binary community
I know.
in a healthcare field. So anyone again that knows me, knows my story, knows that I'm a trans woman who came out while I was a paramedic on an ambulance for a 911 community.
Which must be tough.
Right. And that transition was interesting in and of itself. But this show's about you. So tell us about what it's like to be an individual who's non-binary, who's very comfortably non-binary, who is fantastic with fashion, style, makeup, and I'm super jealous. Hair, everything. We already talked about this, but I figured I'd fluff the ego a little bit more just because it's true. It's true.
Yeah.
So what is it like to be somebody who is non-binary, but also somebody who's very comfortable? Very, very, I know some people who are non-binary are not quite comfortable in their own skin. They still sort of kind of are experimenting with a couple of different styles of fashion, a couple of different styles of makeup, and just sort of general presentation. So what's it like to be somebody who's extremely confident and who is also in the healthcare field studying to become an RN and eventually an NPA? No, an NP.
Yeah. It's interesting being a pioneer, but I kind of took it upon myself. I told myself that when I started transitioning, I was going to be as open and public about it as I can because there's not a lot of stuff out there, So at first, I wasn't sure kind of what I was doing, so I presented as male for about almost a year.
I think everyone that's in the trans community, whether they're non-binary, male to female or female to male, has had that experience
Yeah.
about at least 10 times.
Yeah.
Where
Like
they're
I
kinda
kind of knew I was like, I don't know, I'm not really a guy. I know I'm not a girl. Not really a dude, but I'd rather be seen as a dude in society, but I'm more like a feminine dude, and it kind of just went back and forth, and I was like, I know I'm non-binary, but like, how do I express this, like, outwardly? You know, it was like I would bind my chest for the longest time, and I liked it at first, but it wasn't authentic to me.
Mhm.
Like I've went through like several names, and like while people supported me each time, I would come out with like a new name and like try to have like a new way of seeing myself. It just didn't feel right and authentic.
Well,
I
that's
felt
well,
like
that's
I was
common
lying to
too. That's
myself.
common too for a lot of trans people, is actually finding a name that works for you. So I have a friend in Texas. I have actually several friends that I've met online who live in Texas, and it's like, oh my God, I can't even imagine being in that situation, being in
Yeah,
Texas
I know.
and being trans.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly though, I think people in the deep South, I think people in the deep South have it worse. I really feel for them.
That's
Texas,
why
you can
I
escape to
think-
Austin,
Yeah.
so you have a refuge at least, and it's kind of like San Francisco.
My ex-girlfriend actually was from Austin, so I've been there a few
Yeah,
times. And
it's the oasis.
that was great.
But
It
you still
really
have the
is.
oasis.
It's the green in a field of yelling, angry.
So
mom.
people in Texas have at least that, but then again, you sometimes get the people that live on the borders of Texas, and it's or far enough away from Austin for it to be a big event to actually get to Austin.
That's why I feel like
So it's
representation
still-
and visualization just is important. That's why I want to be as out as I can, just because the internet helps me so much
Trans
with
visibility
figuring it out. It really,
is huge.
that's all about it. And I don't know. I try to.
We talked about that in the first show.
I try to own myself. Like, I've had a lot of doctors and teachers who are saying, oh, you know, I think it's great that you're doing what you're doing. And I'm like, I'm not really doing anything. I'm just trying
just
to
being you.
be me, but like trying to prove that like I exist. You know, I'm
Right.
real. Like, being non-binary is tough because
In a way that's most comfortable for you
yeah,
as a person. That's the hardest part.
it's tough because it doesn't make sense to people. People have to make sense of it first before they can even look at you.
But why do people have to do that? That's one of the great philosophical and sociological
Mhm.
questions that I dabbled in. I'm sure you had a couple of discussions like that during your your initial first 4 years of academia.
Mm-hmm.
But that is one of those topics that keeps coming up even now, and I see all kinds of posts on Tumblr about it, is why do people feel the need to rationalize these things to the point where they have to comment or feel like they have to interfere or intervene with other people's lives?
Mm-hmm.
Why is that a thing that we can't seem to evolve or get past, or at least
And
certain aspects
especially-
of our species?
Especially with the internet too. I feel like now that everyone has a platform, they feel like their opinions matter so much more.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I think people just have to compartmentalize and categorize and just make things make sense to them. But sometimes they're lacking in what they don't know, and they just don't know they don't know. And you just have to be there and be out and educate them, you know?
Do you think that we'll ever evolve past that? Looking at the average of our species, do you think we'll ever
Eventually.
evolve?
I
Transcend?
think that
That's a good word.
I think that the younger people are gonna save
Oh,
us.
it's huge, especially in Japan. I was in Japan last year for a week and a half, and just talking to the youth there, the college age students who were our hosts. I was older than almost everybody
Yeah.
on the trip, but just talking to my college age peers in Japan, they were telling me how there's this huge LGBTQIA revolution. There's this huge social revolution
Finally.
for everything. And it's
Yeah.
not just LGBTQIA, because now they have Tokyo Pride, but it's also a cultural thing where the youth is now shifting away from this more traditional Japanese sense of let's keep the culture the way it's been for forever, and let's start being more like the global community.
Mm-hmm.
And the students there, almost every single one was telling me how they've become more globally aware
Yeah.
and socially conscious. Is there a word for that? There has to be. Because I know globalist refers to a lot of other
So
problematic
it's probably
things.
just westernized. But I just think that I think the youth just drives progress, and I think that with the help of the internet, people are finally able to seek what they don't have. And I think especially with Japan in general, like their culture, I don't want to say is oppressive, but I've always kind of seen it that way, where it was just very centered around tradition and older people. And we have that here. We think that, white cishet men rule the world, and there's no reason for them to. And I think very soon we're going to see that the youth really does drive change, and they're going to have a louder voice. I feel like our generation, like millennials, if you want to call it that, are like right at the edge.
Avocado toast.
Yeah, we're right at the edge. We kind of missed it.
We're never going to be able to afford rent because we're spending too much money on avocado toast.
Yeah, it's the Gen Zers. You guys in high school right now, you guys graduating are going to be the ones that change everything. So please change it. But
so have you had any unique situations or adversity that you've had to overcome specifically in your RN program now that you're much more comfortable with yourself? Have you had any issues at school or during your clinicals? Because I know with your clinicals, you're interacting with the public. I know with me and the healthcare field that I'm in with public safety on the ambulance, I'm sure it's kind of similar to experiences you have as a nursing student because you're doing the same type of medical patient interactions, bedside interactions, as we call it.
I pick and choose my battles. So when I when I first started school, we had almost 40 students. Okay. And I had just started transitioning. Literally that week, I was about to start testosterone.
The big T.
Oh, God. I'm glad I'm not on it anymore. We can get into that.
I'm glad that you're happy. That's what matters to me.
I thought, I don't know, it was really important that I did it.
But you tried it, so now you know. That's part of being questioning.
I was on it for a while, and I started feeling changes that I just didn't feel like I wanted anymore. Mm-hmm. But we can get into that after. So I was about to start testosterone. I was binding. I was, presenting as male. And I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. And I was like, I'm non-binary. Because we had to go around and say something about ourselves. So I was like, you know what? Fine. I'm non-binary. I don't identify as male or female. Prefer they, them pronouns. And at that point, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to give for a name. And I was just just L. And everyone now calls me L. And that's just how it came about. Everyone calls me L. No one knows, my name is Laura.
And like we talked about before, L makes me think of L from Elu.
Which I do.
From Death Note.
I do sit like him, so it's okay.
With the...
Yeah.
I love it. Just eating whatever Japanese candy that he eats with a spoon.
Oh my God. He's so cute. I love him. But most of the staff has been really, really supportive. I actually am really lucky to have a lot of LGBT staff. One of my first professors was a lesbian. I have 2 gay professors now, and one of them's actually doing his PhD thesis on trans health. So they've been overly supportive. All of their correspondence have they, them pronouns for me. All of my paperwork on their end, they call me L in paperwork, and it's all they, them.
That's a really progressive step forward that I can really appreciate.
The students, on the other hand, they understand that something is up, but they don't really get it. I've had some people who, they ask me, so what are you into? It becomes sexuality for them. They're so are you into men or women? And do you want to have a penis? It's just, they don't really.
The old go-to.
They don't really know boundaries about those things. But for the most part, I think they kind of just assume that I'm dykey. I'll take it, but it's not really what it is. But yeah, if people ask, I explain to them. But for the most part, they just kind of think I'm just someone with short hair. I even have some friends now who they're are you going to grow your hair back out? You look so much more feminine. I'm that's the point.
No, your hair looks perfect. And your eyebrows are on point.
Thank you, yeah.
100 times better than mine. I use the perfect eyebrow pencil from Benefit. That's it. And that works.
It's just about,
that works
erasing.
Well enough. Yeah.
It's just drawing it in, smudging it, and then, erasing around.
That's one way, but I pain myself to do the pencil and to do the...
Oh my God. Too much.
Sometimes it comes out better. Sometimes it comes out worse, especially on the corners, on the interior.
And then when it comes to actually interacting with patients, I'm female to them.
Mm-hmm.
I've had some of my friends, when we end up working
also
together,
interacting with the medical field, to me that's familiar and makes sense.
Yeah. When I'm working with a partner, with a friend, they'll sometimes casually refer to me as they. For the most part, I'm seen as female, and it's okay because I understand they're elderly sick people. It's not about me. It really isn't. That's when I don't really care.
Mm-hmm.
And I've actually been more lenient, I guess, because at first it was really, I was obsessed with labels. I was obsessed with finding a label and a word that meant what I felt. And being misgendered was stabbing. And I still get it now.
Been there.
I still feel it now, but I'm more lenient because if I can just present myself in make it about how I'm acting and how I'm coming off to people, then it doesn't really matter what the words they're using for me are.
So I was actually in a situation today where I was taking a class for my paramedic certificate. It was the ACLS refresher.
Mhm.
You do ACLS
I
too,
do,
right?
yeah.
Okay. So it was the ACLS refresher, which is mandated for the sort of more advanced but not top level healthcare.
Yeah.
But sort of, I think once you get a certain point,
'Cause I just
everyone
have
does
to
it. Because
do
even
B-
doctors do
I just
ACLS.
have to do BLS for now, but
Mhm. So I was
beginner.
at the class, and one of the girls that we work with, we were having a conversation outside, and she was just being super friendly, super nice, just kind of casual, and she kept using the wrong pronouns, but she was being super pleasant, so I didn't say anything. But then after, she actually reached out to me, and this really well thought out message that said, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry for using the wrong pronouns." I didn't say anything, but she reached out to me and she said that she was overtired, and she had known me before I transitioned. And she said that she was totally just not thinking, and she had other things on her mind, and she apologized to me. And I said, "Thank you so much for reaching out. That means
That's
more to me."
huge.
Yeah, that just shows me how much of an awesome person you are, and that I wasn't picking up on this feeling of maliciousness.
Yeah.
And I feel like you, as well as much as I do, would be able to tell when being misgendered is malicious, and when people honestly are just not thinking, which I think happens more often than not. It's our friends and our community members and our family just, they're not thinking, or it just not quite goes over their head, but they might correct themselves. Or if we correct them, they'll say, "Oh, sorry."
Yeah.
And then they'll use the right pronouns,
That's
which
all-
is kind of like
that's all
par
I
for the
need.
course.
That's all I need, as long as they're trying, honestly, because
Right.
I know it's confusing. And like one of the reasons why I wanted
It's a learning curve. That's what I say.
One of the reasons I wanted to even start testosterone was because of like my voice and stuff like that. Like I wanted to lower it. I wanted to look a little bit more androgynous because I hated being automatically just gendered as female.
Is there anything special about that to you personally about this look? Because this look is just, I look at you and I see you. Does that make sense?
This is just how,
This is like, this
what
is
I've
totally
landed
you.
on. Yeah.
Like it just,
Yeah.
I feel like this is how you were
I
supposed
don't have to bind anymore. Like, I feel fine. Like it is a learning curve too for us, for people who are non-binary, realizing that, you can have boobs and still not be female.
Right.
You can have a penis and not be male. Like, it's okay.
Non-binary is wonderful.
Yeah, it's great. And I really like playing it up to like when I go out and doing kind of like the casual drag and, just mixing and matching huge makeup with like guy clothes, because I don't wear female clothes anymore. Everything I wear is in the men's section, and that's one thing that I'm very adamant on is I will not.
But that's like
shop.
me with women's clothes.
Yeah, I will not shop in the women's
women's
section.
clothes, men's clothes. That's a whole other
They're
debate.
just clothes.
Yes, exactly.
But I will not stop
clothes that you purchase in the men's section, or clothes that you purchase in the women's section, or clothes that are tailored to the masculine form versus clothes that are tailored more to the feminine form. Because I do like women's form-fitting t-shirts, and they do. So women's t-shirts and dresses obviously too, they're meant to accentuate the shape, according to my HRT physician, that female bodies and male bodies, just the curvature, and something that I've learned being on HRT.
Yeah, me too.
The curvature of the bodies is different. So there is a point.
That's one
to
reason
having
I stopped
women's and men's clothing. There's sometimes where it gets out of control, and I think that's more what we're talking about with the whole pink and blue type stuff. But for the most part, I like that there is the form-fitting clothes, and then there's also the baggy clothes. I think people appreciate that. Yeah,
I do too. But yeah, no, I really did like tea because it was like a mood boost, and I got to do it every week. And
that's like me on
every
estrogen.
day. So every Thursday, I was like, it's testosterone day, and I would like inject, and it was great.
Relatable, except for the other side of the spectrum.
Yeah, it made me. But going through the puberty thing again, like, is crazy because I was going from background story. I was on birth control. I was on estrogen for about 11 years straight for PCOS because at that time that was
PCOS?
The polycystic ovary syndrome.
Okay.
It's a hormonal disorder. So basically, I naturally had more testosterone anyway. Who would have thought?
Wouldn't that classify you as intersex? Technically,
not exactly.
Or do you have to test? Do you have to test positive on some sort of a certain test to be?
You have to have. It's more of like a DNA type thing.
Okay.
Or like more congenital. So you're either born with certain organs or the chromosomes are different, and you just present as different way.
I know the exact definitive science on intersex is still out, right?
I
think there's still
it depends.
okay.
really depends on who you talk to. But it's
Because
either
I have heard different things.
it's either that you're genetically like XY, but like parts of you didn't develop, so you like they're like on the inside or something like that. And then there's other types. There's different types of intersex where it's just like decided you were going to live a certain way because you were born with like both parts and
So
stuff
what
like
is
that.
what is an intersectional feminist?
Intersectional feminism is
Because
basically
I'm a feminist through and
yeah,
through, but
you would be an intersectional feminist because
oh, okay.
do you know what TERFs are?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
Unfortunately.
basically, it's like the opposite. It's basically saying that feminism includes trans women, includes non-binary women, includes people who
Okay.
associate with the feminine or with the womanhood, but may not be biologically that way.
Okay.
Whereas TERFs and like their feminism is basically vagina is feminism, vagina is womanhood. It's like, no, it's not.
I feel like that's sort of going by the unless all of the TERFs are not savvy to the internet. I feel like the majority of feminists are now intersectional feminists.
Yeah.
It's great. Okay, great. Now I can actually use that because I've made it my personal mission to sort of fight the good fight against chasers.
Oh God.
which is a monumentous task. Monumentous. So I would have had about 6,000 to 8,000 followers on Tumblr.
Mm-hmm.
I have about 2,750.
Yeah, because as soon as if you tag trans woman,
so what I do is every single day I block at least 5 people. Sometimes it's 7, 8 or more. So but this is part of my daily routine.
That's
is I'll log
also
onto
part
my
of just
Tumblr.
being female presenting because like
That's true too.
it feels so good because I've gone from people like being in the DMs to like no one giving a shit, and I'm just like, thanks for leaving me alone. But
Jealous
no,
of the
so
ease.
I was on the birth control pill for a while because basically their way of handling that problem was to put more estrogen in the body. Basically,
That must have been miserable for you.
I wouldn't naturally get like a period, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was on that from like 15 to 21. And that whole time, birth control makes it so you don't have a sex drive. So I basically kind of grew up thinking, all right, I'm weird. I'm probably just asexual. I'm going to force myself to like be in relationships with people and like whatever, feel nothing. And then I go on testosterone and I'm like, oh my God, I'm horny all the time. Like, I want to have sex with all my friends and everything. And I was like, this is fucking confusing. I thought I hated sex and now it's everywhere. I mean, I felt it. And I was also really hungry a lot.
That's one thing that I've heard is that being on testosterone can make you very hungry.
Makes you eat.
Yeah.
Eating was great. I stopped once body fat distribution kind of became a thing and I just stopped feeling pretty to myself. I was having more of like a manly figure. And
well, again, it's personal comfort.
Yeah, I just wasn't feeling pretty anymore. I think I was passing as male a little bit more and forgot that I'm non-binary and I'm not female to male. And like I would go out in public and like guys wouldn't look at me anymore. And I was just like, oh. Well,
following anyone's journey, especially yours, is a beautiful thing. I love to follow people's journey whoever they are, male to female, again, male to female, female to male, non-binary. I love seeing people finally find themselves because I know how much of an incredible feeling that was. Every day is like being on. I'm grateful for every day, or I try to be grateful for every day, just because I'm just so happy to be me.
Yeah,
and I feel like a lot of people in the
once
trans
I realized that I was allowed to be me, it was like, whoa, I didn't even know. Like I thought that life was just going to suck always and I was always going to be depressed. And now my like therapist is like, you kind of seem like you're in remission with your depression. Like you are just so much better now. And I'm like, I know, I didn't know I could be like that. But it's, yeah. And people at school, they're like, so now you're not trans anymore? Like, and I'm like, no, I still am. I'm just not actively on hormones.
I still haven't seen that, by the way.
You should.
I know, Demogorgons. It's on my list. It's on my list of. It is really
good. Just you have to go into Stranger Things knowing that it's not serious and that it is like a parody of everything. Because I have these neighbors who are like super normie, and when it first came out, they were trying to discuss it. Like, I don't understand. Like it was fine and like normal, and all of a sudden like these supernatural things came out of nowhere, and I'm like, that's the point. But
right.
So just go into it knowing that it's fun and scary.
now that we've had a sidebar that we could have segued into the Nerdcast, I remember the other things that I want to talk to you
Yes.
about now because we had that little break now that we're back into it.
Yes.
I want to talk to you about pronouns.
Yeah.
And we've talked about they, them, theirs. We've talked about he, she, etc. We've already had a little bit of conversation on that.
And
So
I was
tell me-
obsessed with pronouns for a long time too. Like I just would think about it. I was like, they, them, or they, he. Like, what am I doing? And then it was just anything but she. But I don't know.
Right.
It's weird. So they, as much as I embrace it, and that really is my truest pronoun, it's still hard hearing that from people and assuming
Interesting.
it's a single they versus plural they.
Okay.
Because if they, you have to figure out the subject of the context, I guess. Like if I know that they're talking about me and then they say they, I'm like, okay, cool. But if they just go out and be like, oh,
Right.
they over there, I'm just like, are you talking about me? Like, who am I? It's
Well, that
hard
makes
to
sense.
retrain the brain to realize that it is a single they versus plural they. Because I think that's what people's issue with that word is.
I think the neutral pronouns have been the hardest for me.
See, for me, they're
personally.
easy because I refer to everything as they now.
Right.
And like, I actually had my neighbor. He's like this big cishet guy, but he's like trying to understand. Like he tries.
Well, that's
And
good.
he's
That's what's
like-
important. It's people who try.
That's all I'm
means
asking
everything.
for. I
It
just
means
want
the
people to
world.
try.
Yeah.
But he was like, I noticed that you refer to everything as they, and I'm like, yeah, because if you start doing it, you start using it.
I've been getting better with it for sure because I hate it when people misgender me. So I have to be better at the they, them, theirs pronoun. And there's so many amazing, incredible people, especially in the Tumblr sphere. And Tumblr is my big thing, like we said before. There's so many incredible people on Tumblr who are non-binary, and I love them so much. They always have these incredible, amazing posts, pictures, photos, selfies, makeup, fashion. I love it. I love it all.
People. But yeah, and then I would think about, well, maybe I'll also introduce he, him for people who can adapt they. Because I had come out to, when I was first coming out, one of my best friends said to me, they, them doesn't make sense to me. Can I call you he? And I said yes. It was weird. I don't know. Because I was like, I'm not fully he, him. I don't want
Right.
people to really think that that's what I'm going after, because I am still going to be very feminine. And so it was hard because I was like, do I try to make an exception for people? And it's like, no, I'm not going to
You
say.
should never make exceptions.
Yeah, I'm not
Should
going to
never
be
make
like,
exceptions for
if
anyone.
it makes you feel better. It's like, no, this is who I
Yeah.
am. And I've been very, very adamant. I mean,
No
there
way.
are times when I'm first meeting people and they she me because that's what they assume. And I'm like,
It's common.
I let it go. But then I have other people who I'm hanging out with who are non-binary, like, no, they go by they. I also go by they. And I'm like, thank you.
Unfortunately, I think it's more common for non-binary folks to either get the pronoun one way or another versus for, and I'm going to say both. I'm going to say for trans men, but we'll start with trans men. For trans men, for somebody to just come up and automatically just use female pronouns, it's a total slap in the face, and it's insulting, and that's direct with non-binary folks. There is a little bit of a curve, unfortunately. So I think you're in a little bit of a disadvantageous position because I think with our non-binary folks, I think there's a lot of people who are trying, but who might just not know.
That's the thing.
Versus the maliciousness of calling a trans man she.
Right.
Or in my personal experience, obviously I try very, very hard to present as female. I don't want to say like I try too hard, but
Well, in your version of what
Right.
your female is, because I mean, you can still be female.
my own version,
and
yes.
not
That's good.
be overly made up and stuff like that
Right.
too.
But it's very, I mean, everything I do through and through is female. Everything. And then for someone to use the wrong pronouns, it's like, what are you doing?
No, I know.
What are you
Like
doing with your life?
I based a lot of mannerisms off of male mannerisms. Like I studied a lot, and I would like move like it as well. And actually, I mean, it depends. Like if you're around people who get it, like they appreciate that. Like I was shadowing a nurse who I ended up finding out was trans, female to male, and I didn't know he was until he logged in to the mainframe and his dead name was on there, and I was like, oh shit,
I finally got my name changed. Officially, legally, by the way. Did I tell you that?
that's awesome. Yeah, I saw.
Okay, cool.
That's great. Good for you.
Hello.
Hi. And I was like, I just wanted to let you know, like at the end of it, I was like, wanted to let you know, like I'm also trans, and like this was like an honor to
That's
like
awesome.
work with you. And
That's
he was like,
such a great
he goes,
story.
yeah, I figured something was up there, and I was like, oh my god, he knew, like, oh,
That's great. So I had a discussion with my friend Kevin, who lives in Japan. He teaches English in Japan,
Wow.
and he works for some educational agencies over in Japan as well. He just got hired to a new position, and he's actually starting his own podcast. He does a lot of research with existentialism and things like that, and that's a lot of his free time is spent surrounding just the very nature of existentialism, and he spends a lot of time thinking about Buddhism and enlightenment.
Oh, great.
And we were having a conversation about pronouns, and basically with everything that we were just talking about, he agrees. Basically, he's a great ally, but then we got into a conversation that I was curious to ask him about because he's a very deep thinker. And I want to know your thoughts on this too. And we were discussing actually one of the, there was a couple of medical videos that I found on YouTube that were done from the point of true neutral regarding pronouns, that were trying to be very as objective as possible, stating the research on both sides that has been done on transgender individuals, whether they're not male to female, female to male, non-binary, whatever. And basically we started talking about the expanded universe of pronouns and how they can potentially become problematic.
Yeah.
So when you get into the extended universe of pronouns beyond he, she, they, what are your thoughts on that? Because especially with the Z, she, the other ones.
I honestly was never a fan. I understand.
They can be problematic.
I understand the need for them, but so I think they're fine in online world and like the internet and fandoms and stuff.
I like that way of
but
looking at it.
But when it comes to real life, when it comes to what's going to be on my ID or what's going to be on paper, he, they, her, like that's the spectrum. I feel like that's what's going to make sense for medical stuff.
That's what's on the trans flag.
But
is the 3.
I understand people's needs because I was also obsessed with the label, and I feel like it just goes back to labeling. It just goes back to finding a word that you belong with. Oh, man, let's see. I started out as gender queer when I was like 22, and then it was gender fluid, and then it was female to male, and then it was agender. Now it's demigender, gender fluid, non-binary. Like,
well, those are all fine and good.
They all mean kind of the same thing anyway, but it's just finding the label that works for you.
Those, I think, commonly accepted by everyone in the trans community. On these true neutral videos that I was telling you about, the ones that I find. And I think if you just do a quick common sense YouTube search, you'll be able to find the videos that I'm talking about. They showed a couple of clips. I don't know who the people were that were talking, but they showed a couple of clips of some YouTube content creators. And it was a video that really bothered me, the one that I chose, and it was 2 YouTube content creators. They were both AFAB individuals. But they were discussing, their whole topic of conversation was, this week my favorite pronouns are, and last week my favorite pronouns were, and I think I'm going to switch to these pronouns next week.
That's just
and they were discussing it like,
them.
Yeah, they were discussing it like it was some sort of a fashion trend.
That's what I feel like people see
that bothers me.
When they think about non-binary in general, is just like the quote-unquote Tumblr fad thing, where it's just like they're trying stuff on. But I think it's also, to play devil's advocate for them, it's transition in general is kind of like trying to go back through adolescence and refine yourself and redefine yourself. And you're supposed to pick and choose different identities, journey, right? You're supposed to pick what fits with you. And if it doesn't work, you put it back and you try a new one. So I think that's like the only reason I see why that would be okay, is that they're just trying to pick things, even though they're doing it in a way that's like sensationalizing and kind of wrong. But
I'm actually really excited and really glad to hear you say that, because I was concerned about the expanded pronouns. And to me, you are, I think, the ideal representative of the non-binary community. When I think non-binary, you're the first person and not just because I know, like I said before, I know a lot of non-binary folks on Tumblr, but when I think of that, the core of the trans flag is the non-binary folk. When I think of that, you're just so happy, and I can't say enough. I can't say enough good things.
Yeah, it's a
so your word to me on extended pronouns means a lot.
I do a lot of research,
and you have proven yourself academically as well. You have a bachelor's degree in
psychology, and I also minored in sociology and philosophy. So thinking about people and studying people is just kind of what I do.
To the camera, right? So
that's just what I do.
Let me just dust your shoulders off. So you are technically, logically, I think, qualified logically and academically qualified to comment on these subjects.
What is unfortunate, though, in being in nursing school, though, is they do bring up gender when they really mean sex. So like a lot of what we learn, for example, will be like, oh, you know, like men or age and gender and blah, blah, blah are things that, you know, are risk factors. And it's like, no, it's age and sex. It's not age and gender. And they'll be like, men do this, women do this. And I'm like, yeah, but there's more to that.
AFAB and AMAB are two of my favorite
I know,
LGBTQA terms that I think have made things so much easier for everyone, because you can, for people that are trying to learn, explaining to them AFAB or AMAB will get you places in conversation with almost anybody.
Yeah.
But more obviously, especially with the people that want to learn. And it helps to clarify a lot of things.
Yeah. And I mean, I love also getting down into the concept of biological. That's not even a fair thing to say either. And like man and woman aren't really the two ends. You know, there's so much more that you can dissect in that too. But I like to just stay in the realm of gender is fake and we made it up, and you know, you don't have to adhere to anything you don't want to.
So the true neutral people have tried to go and say that sex and gender are the same thing, but that is flawed. And as someone who's also has a bachelor's degree, not that it really means anything, but if we're talking academically, both of us together, I think as relatively, I mean, I don't have a master's or anything, but based on my academic experience.
Yeah, you were just praising yourself for your academic experience.
I know. I'm getting
and gender.
I'm getting all high and mighty over here. Yeah. So sex and sex and gender. So yeah. So based on my academic experience, I would say that sex is obviously not gender. You have a sex which is assigned at birth, which you can change, and then gender in and of itself, the very definition is a social construct.
Yeah.
But
then you have to explain what social constructs are. Like I literally had to explain gender to someone that I call him a Neanderthal. He's not a Neanderthal, but he's just a very hyper masculine cishet dude who's never had to think about trans in general.
Right.
And I had to tell him there are certain roles that we attribute to men and women. What's feminine, what's masculine. Those aren't real things in science. Like, those aren't real. We made them happen so we could control people. But explaining that at first is hard.
Hello, Rox.
So, hi. Yeah, no, basically gender is in your head and sex is in your pants.
Right.
And
so
that's just
that argument, yes. So that argument really, really bothers me. And everything you can change now. Everything you can change completely, which is great.
Yeah.
That's
also something I think people need to remember too, is transgender and transsexual are different.
I gave up completely. I hate that word. Yeah. And then I hate the one that is associated with the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yeah,
even though that's yeah.
I actually had an anthropology teacher try to say the TV word. And I was like, that is not a real, like he was trying.
I mean,
at first
it's novelty
he was okay
if we're talking about
because
Rocky
he was
Horror,
talking about like poly and monogamous relationships, and then like he like basically grasped non-binary a little bit, but then he like went into transvestite. And I was
this was an anthropology professor?
Yeah, and I was like,
they should know better.
He really should have, but I had already had my degree at that point, and I was just like, I can't sit here and listen to you do this.
I think the best part about actually having a degree is when those really nasty, not quite trolls, but you know, like there's always somebody that says, "Oh, what qualifies you to talk about that?"
And you're like, "Let me get out my textbook and I'll literally source it for you."
That is my least favorite question, but I get that question enough where it's unfortunate, but I feel like I have to say, yes, I've been academically trained with a degree in social sciences,
and also just life experience.
Yeah, that too. It does that question. I mean, I get why that question exists.
Yeah, but they're not doing it the right way. Like the right way would be like, oh, like, do you have sources? Let me see your sources.
Right. Not what qualifies you to comment on this.
They're just being patronizing.
Oh my goodness. So pronouns. There's so many.
Just respect people's pronouns.
Yeah.
Like even if they don't look the way that they want to be presenting, like, okay, whatever. If they don't look like they're female, but they say they want to be she, her, they're still she, her. Like they don't have to look a certain way. You don't have to do anything, and people should still just believe you because it's from the inside.
Absolutely.
Like there's no picture for how things are supposed to be, and especially with gender, because it's all made up.
Boom. So you are a big advocate for putting X gender markers on driver's licenses?
So either
Because I don't know too much about that whole push, and there's a whole movement for that, right?
there is. I mean, we've already done it in Oregon and California, and they actually were.
Perfect.
There was a bill proposed.
Props to
for
California
Mass.
and Oregon.
Yeah,
Especially Oregon too. That's
I
awesome.
would love for either there be no marker in general,
Mhm.
or like if we, first of all, we don't need to have a sex or gender marker. I mean, that's just you don't need
Preach.
it. It's for statistics, and we don't need that shit. But if we do, then it should be a gender marker, not a sex. Like it could be, not a sex marker, because like who cares?
Mhm.
So if it's going to be a gender marker, then yeah, M, F, or X. I mean, because I for the longest time, since at least 10 years now, I will not write female on paperwork. I write non-binary and I write gender fluid on all my, census schoolwork and my doctor stuff because I don't fit it. I might look it, but I'm not.
Did you see that microphone almost hit me in the face?
Yeah.
It actually smacked me in the face during I don't know if it was 001 or 002, but
Oh my God.
one of our first two podcasts, it just came up and whoosh, smacked me right in the face. So you said that we have a bill in Massachusetts now
They
that's being
were.
proposed?
I don't know what the status is of it, but I know that it was in the works. And it makes sense for Mass. I mean, if Oregon and California are doing, like, we should be the ones who do it. But
We're such a great state to live in. I'm so lucky to live in Massachusetts. Honestly, things have been really easy for me. The only problem I'm having now is getting my federal gender marker changed. Because let me tell y'all an interesting story about me in my experience as a trans woman. So we're in Massachusetts. In Massachusetts, I am F through and through. Everything is female.
that's amazing.
In Massachusetts, we're good to go. I can drive around the whole state. The second I cross the frickin' borders of this state, that F changes to an M.
This is not an M. There's no M here.
Thank you. I love it when people validate me. So thank you.
Yeah.
No, but seriously, what is the...
Yeah, and see, that's the thing. It doesn't mean anything. I don't even think there really should be sex or gender markers on identification when it comes to that. I feel like the only reason they want that is so they can figure out who you are and, like, statistically, like, see what's going on. But, like, you don't even need that. If you're pulling me over, it doesn't matter if I'm male or female or none.
One argument has come from the medical field, and the argument is there has to be a better way to identify trans individuals who are taking hormone replacement therapy and those who are not. And if you choose not to take hormone replacement therapy, or if you are unable to for whatever reason, that's totally fine. You are valid.
The healthcare field is actually really progressive on it. So I was hospitalized in November and I was still on testosterone. And actually after that hospitalization is when I stopped. During that time, I told them, I was like, yeah, I'm on testosterone and I'm transitioning. And they would introduce
medically
me as...
that does change things. Though.
They would introduce me as a female to male person.
Perfect.
And
that's
I was
awesome.
like, this is really nice. Like,
cool.
thanks, guys. But they're very on top of that. At least here, a lot of our healthcare is around being inclusive. So they're very into pronouns. Like, oh my gosh, when I first met with my HRT doctor, he was like, what are your pronouns? Like, what are your sexuality? And he like didn't flinch at all.
Are you at
and
Fenway?
I was like, thank you. No, I went to Brigham and Women's.
Oh, really?
But I love Fenway. I really want to work there when I'm an NP.
I just applied for a job, but I didn't get in because I'm baby trans.
Oh, you'll get there. You've done a lot for being a baby trans.
I hate baby trans. I hate that.
Well, first you start in the egg, and then you hatch into baby trans, and you come full-fledged. You fly away.
Well, apparently I'm still a child in the eyes of the rest of the trans community.
No, I think you're doing pretty well for yourself, I have to
Thank
say.
you. Thank you. You as well, because I've been following your journey as well. So we're just gushing over each other. It's great. So we've got about 10 or 15 minutes left or so. So let's try. I had so much fun talking to you about all these amazing gender topics that we're neglecting the hashtag Nerdcast portion of this. So you said that you want to talk Marvel and DC.
Oh my gosh.
So let's talk Marvel. So let's talk Marvel and DC. First of all, did you see the new trailer for Infinity War?
Yes.
See, I sort of fell off the Marvel train for a little bit. What was the last one? I can't remember what the last one I saw was, but I need to go see, I need to see Ant-Man. I need to see Civil War.
Yeah. I saw Civil War when it came out. I think that was actually the last one I saw. I didn't see Black Panther yet.
I just saw that it is Black Panther is literally one of the
I've
best
heard.
movies I've ever seen in my entire life. Just cinematically. And I'm not just I know a lot of people are just saying it's a good movie just to say it's a good movie. But no, cinematically, and I'm speaking specifically cinematically.
Yeah.
It is one of the most incredible movies I've ever seen from start to finish.
I can't
The
wait.
cinematography, the mise en scène. There's a legit drop for you, or the mise en scene, depending on how you pronounce your French crossovers. But no, everything, the dialogue, everything is just absolutely. And then there's that social aspect too, where
It dropped at a good time. Like I'm really happy with it.
what was the name of the actor who also played the Hobbit? What is that actor's name?
Orlando Bloom.
No, he actually was the Hobbit
Oh.
in the first in the Hobbit prequel.
Oh, hold on. I'm Elijah Wood.
No,
Yeah.
Elijah Wood was Frodo in Lord of the Rings, but
they're all hobbits to me.
so
I don't know.
So that actor was in, and I was reflecting on this the other day, and basically what Black Panther did, and a lot of our friends in the Black Lives Matter community, I was reading some of these posts, and they were saying that it was so emotional to a lot of individuals in Black Lives Matter and people
It's
who
the
are
bridge
just
guy. That's what you're
yeah,
saying.
or anyone of African descent, that's active on social media was talking about how it was such an amazing film culturally, because this is one of the first mainstream films ever where the entire cast in a AAA film, in a AAA mainstream film, has been entirely Black, and it's been entirely callbacks and references to African culture. And that one character, the two main Caucasian characters, one is a villain who's killed off, and spoilers.
People die in the Marvel
Spoilers.
movies. We know.
One of them is a villain, and the other one is sort of has taken over the role of how Hollywood used to place Black actors in these sort of side
like
roles.
the comedic side.
Yeah, and the Hobbit is now that sort of
something Martin,
side character.
Martin something.
Martin Freeman?
Yeah, there you go. We figured it out.
Is it Martin Freeman?
It is. It's, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But, and it's amazing
so
because...
this great reversal that I also appreciated.
You think, we're trying to be progressive with like trans and gay rights and stuff, but society is still focused on the fact that Black people are people and they're not just Black people. Like we have to go back and like realize like we have a long ways to go, but we're doing so well right now. Like we're trying, and that's what we need. People are trying.
Privilege is real, and it's unfortunate that in 2018 that phrase can still be said.
Yeah.
Like what are we doing? Why is more not being done about this?
We're working on it. It's the youth. We need you kids to graduate and go make some change happen.
I mean, the Black Lives Matter folks are incredible. I love all y'all. Y'all are the best. Seriously. Yes. So Marvel and DC. I mean, obviously the DC movies all sucked except for Wonder Woman.
I was just playing through Injustice, which is a weird
Hello,
game.
everyone that just came in. Well, the games are good. Injustice is a great game.
It's like
a
movie game. I like it.
Yeah.
But it's just a movie game.
Wonder Woman, I love. But all the other ones suck so bad.
That's why I stick with Marvel. As much as I love Batman Forever. Like, he's one of my actual favorites, but...
Val Kilmer? Because you said Batman Forever. Right?
Or Batman Forever.
Okay.
But yeah, obviously Val Kilmer. But I mean, Batman is a concept.
He's fat now. Well, he's been fat for a few years.
He's old and fat. So.
He's come a long way since Heat. No, he was sexy in Heat.
Once upon a time.
Yeah. Oh, we're talking about hormones and everything. I've never been more attracted to men.
Really?
Yeah.
See, that's so interesting because I feel like
I'm just like, give me all the man candy.
Oh my god.
And I've been seeing this guy.
Yeah.
We just
cute.
had our second date.
Photo.
Did you see the photo?
Yeah, I like him.
Sexy man candy.
Awesome.
Very, very excited about that. Hopefully he's not listening, because I'm going to embarrass myself. But if you are...
Dating while trans is fucking hard.
Yeah.
By the way,
because there's so many chasers.
And like for me, as soon as they hear that I'm trans, they think female to male.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have to go back and be like, no, I'm just think of me as like a really cool, like, whatever. But now I'm not really dating men anymore, so I'm done with that.
Representing
I'm
that
now
L.
a non-binary lesbian. Woo!
Yes.
So give me those women. Women don't care. I'm so glad I can like be myself.
I know, and we talked about this earlier. Non-binary lesbian is something that I think needs more, not education, but needs more.
Yeah, you can
more
hold
people
on
like
to your
yourself.
non-binary label and still call yourself a lesbian. Like, don't worry about that.
Oh yeah,
I
totally.
worried about it for like a second, and then I read up on it. I was like, no, it's cool. It's a real thing.
So you're being visible and open with that, and I think that's great. And I think the more people that hopefully maybe you just saying this now, hopefully one person will hear that identifies the exact same way as far as gender and sexuality as you do, but has not quite figured out non-binary lesbian, and they might hear that and say, wow, that works perfectly for me. So hopefully we use this platform to help other people. That's right. I mean, because this is free.
That's what it's
I mean,
about.
eventually I want to do this as a full-time job, but I mean, even when I do, it's just going to be YouTube ad revenue.
Yeah.
This is always going to be a free podcast because it's
That's how it should
LGBTQIA
be. Yeah, it's for
positive.
helping people.
So tell me about tabletops, because I have a whole list of tabletops here that I want to get to before we have to shut this down. So, because I love tabletops, and to me, to some people, tabletops just means Dungeons and Dragons.
Right.
But to me, that means anything that goes on a table.
Yeah.
Including board games. I lump board games in and card games
because for the longest time I didn't have a console, so that was just kind of my go-to at parties. Is like, who's gonna bring what? So yeah. Flux is definitely a fave. I've played.
Do you see? I have it down there.
Yeah.
Flux, Dixit, and Dominion. Tell me about all those, because those are. I'm intrigued.
Flux is fun. There's different versions of it. It's basically just like a really good party game where you go in a circle and you just put down cards and things can happen, and you also try to like match up certain ones. And if you match up things that go together, then you win. But then there's also cards that like tell you like action cards, I guess.
Okay, and for anyone just coming in, this is Flux, the tabletop Flux we're talking about.
So there's different versions of it, and that's more what the fun part is. It so like I've played Zombie Flux, so the whole card game is around zombies, and the action cards have to do with like being eaten or being killed or whatever, and you have to like collect like zombie parts and weapons. My favorite though, and what I own, is Stoner Flux. So like you have to collect.
Is it a mod?
Kinda, yeah. So, like, you have to collect, like, bags of weed
Asterisk.
and, like, Ziploc bags and, like,
that's
food.
funny.
And parts of the action cards are, like, take a bong hit, like, when it's your turn, blah, blah. But
So
Stoner Flux was made before it was legal in Mass. So there's, like, a little asterisk and it says, only if it's legal in your state. And I'm like, now it is.
So it's an interactive card game that seems like for both versions it can be used as an icebreaker or a party game.
For sure, yeah.
For sort of any audience.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
And since there's different versions of it, you can kind of pick like what fits for what audience.
So tell me about Dixit. What's Dixit?
Dixit is like a picture game. So there's different
That's just
cards.
that made me think of when I think Dixit, I think of Brexit, but Dixit to me seems like if the male porn industry suddenly walked out and had a strike, that'd be called Dixit.
Dixit.
Sorry, that was my lame attempt at humor. So Dixit, what actually is Dixit? Are you bringing up some?
I'm bringing up Dominion.
Some
stuff.
stuff.
But Dixit is basically a game. So there's cards and they just have different like art on them. It's kind of like Cards Against Humanity and Apples to Apples, where you put down a card and then people
those are both great games.
Are really you put down a descriptor, like a word, and
Hello,
then you put down
Erica H.
cards that are supposed to match it, but it's all just visual based. So instead of like a lot of words, it's mostly just like pictures.
So this could be another sort of all-inclusive party game.
Yeah,
I love these icebreaker games because
I feel like if you're playing tabletop, it's gonna be in that kind of vicinity. I'm not really gonna do it alone.
all of my tabletops are super niche tabletops that I can really. I would be successful if I brought these tabletops to Anime Boston, which I'm probably going to do just because
that's the place to do it. Honestly,
I think in between my panel, because I have a panel this year called Trans in Japan Travel Guide Edition, which is going to be about my experience in Japan as a trans woman. But in between on that day, I think I'm just going to set up these tabletops because I can't find anyone who wants to play these tabletops with me. And this is why, because I have the full world map. I'm good, Erica. Thank you. How are you? I have the full world map for Axis and Allies. And that's like an all-day event.
It is. I know.
It's like you have to get up early and come in and bring Cheeto.
Oh God.
Who's got the Cheetos and the Mountain Dew?
Mountain Dew, yep.
And you're just all day trying to just crush the world as Japan or Germany as the Axis powers, because it's just so much fun to play the Axis powers in this game.
That's true.
So Axis and Allies, I have Weapons and Warriors, which is the most fun that you'll ever have with anybody if you can convince them to play it. Do you remember that?
I feel like,
I think it was Milton Bradley, and you have this huge castle, and you have it's about, honestly, it's really about this big from, I don't know if you can see,
it
like,
goes like up.
so it's about,
It's like a 3D
it's about
castle.
it's about yay tall and about yay wide.
Yay
and
transfers well over radium. By
There's
the way.
there's a forest, yay. There's a forest in the middle, and you have cannons and catapults, and you have these little orange balls, and you actually launch,
Oh my god!
and you fire the cannons in this ballista, and the siege equipment and the castle they each have about 15 or 20 different parts that explode on precision impact, and the men that you have stationed, the warriors that you have stationed there, will go flying off.
See, that's the kind of tabletop
It's-
I want to play,
yeah.
where things are like actually happening in the air.
Yes.
Jeez.
When you're attacking the castle, you can open up the front gates, and then you can smash the door with the cannons.
Oh my god.
It's so incredible.
That's crazy. Dominion is basically like Settlers of Catan, but a card game.
I love Settlers of Catan. I'm
It is
such a
really
huge
fun.
nerd for Catan, but I don't actually have. I love going to my friends' homes and playing, or my friends'
and then
places
it's
and
like
playing Catan.
it's like when you visit their kids and you're like, all right, bye. Like you're not fine. I'm not taking you home.
There's a lot, and it's expensive. It's like 60
Yeah.
to $80
Yeah.
for the starter box.
Yeah.
So every time I go to Target and I walk past it, I'm like, I've got so many other tabletops I want to get my friends to play.
Just get them to buy. Be like, you guys should get this. So
Dominion.
I can come over.
Yeah, Dominion sounds cool though. I want to get the Star Wars one at some point,
Oh my god.
but that's also a big investment.
Yeah.
So tell me about MagFest, because MagFest is on our list. So that's your big convention, right?
That's my home convention. Yeah. So
Okay.
MagFest.
Mine is Anime
takes
Boston. Yours is
place-
MagFest.
Takes place in the Gaylord National Resort in National Harbor, which is like kind of outside Maryland, DC, Baltimore. It's like in that little area. It's basically a 24-hour. They don't want to call it convention. It's like a music and gaming festival that lasts about 4 days. 5 days, though, if you count Night Zero, because that's like a new thing now. 24-hour video games.
I
So
don't know
we're
how to
talking
beatbox.
about like LAN. We're talking, tabletop music, chiptune, VGM, video game music, hip hop, a lot of DJ battles.
I want to go.
And it's
Take
24
me with
hours
you.
of just fun. And it's just like a family reunion. And it's just ultimate nerd. I mean, there's furries there. There's people who cosplay, people who are just into like music or just into video games. It just matches together and it's beautiful. And it's in the beginning of January usually.
Do you know how to beatbox? We have requests for
No.
beatboxing. I don't.
Not
Sorry.
really. I mean, no, I'm not even going to try.
Yeah. So MagFest sounds like the perfect place to send our
great.
hashtag Nerdcast
It's
listeners and
great.
viewers. That sounds awesome. Just a big party.
Magfest.org.
Most of the people I talk to, I think the new Sacred Cow or the elite convention is PAX.
Yeah.
Everyone, that's the standard. But MagFest, I like that it's a little bit different.
It's a little, so
And that
it's
there's the
obviously
more the
smaller
music
than
aspect.
PAX,
Mhm.
and it's a little bit more community inclusive. PAX is, for me, has always been kind of more of like an expo, and it basically, MagFest is basically you take the jam space part of PAX and you just make that a convention and add in some video games. But no, I love MagFest. It's definitely worth going to, and it's kind of hit its cap of how many people there's going to be, so it's at a good size where it's big but not too big, like 14,000.
Very cool.
Yeah,
Very cool.
I
I'll have to
love
check it
it.
out. So our person Erica over here says that she's getting into beatboxing, but I don't know. I know
Cool.
nothing about beatboxing.
It's
So-
a cool art form.
Tell me about video game music while we sort of wind down here. So that's something that you wanted to talk about. So to me, video game music means video game soundtracks.
That's how you start.
when I
That's how you
first-
get into it.
When I
yeah.
first listened to video game music, it like blew my mind. It was like a whole nother world.
Yeah, so there's different avenues, I think, for video game music. The one that's
VGM.
nearest and dearest to me is chiptune, and that's basically you start out listening to video game soundtrack, and then you take the actual video game consoles themselves and you can actually make music based on the sounds that they emit. So that's like how original chiptune music kind of came about. You would take a Nintendo and you would just make the
That's pretty
sounds that
crazy.
it can make, or you get a Sega and you just take the sounds that the console can physically produce and you make music with it. So there's a
Okay.
lot of like electronic dance music that's chiptune based and literally made from the hardware of the console. And then there's other chiptune music that's just made, like other electronic music is made just on a computer, but it still emulates the same sounds. So there's a lot of
I like that.
that. And I love chiptune. It's my nearest and dearest.
I did listen to Proto Men. It was it was really interesting for
So
sure.
they are a rock opera.
It's like a concept album.
Yeah, exactly.
Or a concept band.
They took the story of Mega Man versus Dr. Wily and Dr. Light and all that, and they basically made it into a rock opera.
That's awesome.
So all of the albums are conceptual, and they all are leading up to a story. There's 2 right now. They're working on the 3rd. And
the one I listened to, I think it sounded like a sort of Wild West.
Yeah.
Or like a Western type of.
A little bit, yeah.
Which.
I think that was the first.
What was that based off of? What was the game it was based off of in that
Mega
one?
Man. It's all Mega Man.
You know, I've actually never played a full Mega Man game.
You should play Mega Man 10 because the music is really good.
You see, that there's too many. That was just the one game that I never really got into.
Then there's like Bit Brigade and Daniel Cannon. There's a lot of metal in video game music, and they'll basically take characters or concepts from games and just kind of put it to music, or they'll take a riff from a game soundtrack and just make music based off of that.
Very cool. I like that. So I think we're sort of running out of time here, but I really want to say, is that you or is that me that wrote down Bayonetta?
Yeah, I love Bayonetta.
4 guns. She has guns on her high heels, which are like 8 inches, by the way.
The sexiest thing. I love it. I love
Yes. I just got a Switch, so I'm really excited to play Bayonetta 2, y'all. That's my next purchase for the Switch. As soon as I finish Breath of the Wild, Bayonetta 2, you heard it here. I'm going to play the ish out of that game because I love the lore and I've always been really excited about the fandom. But I didn't play the first one, so I'm really excited to play the second one. I played the first one.
I didn't play the second one.
And there's a couple of ones in between, right?
Like a half. There's like a little like mini game thing. But I think for the most part, it's just the one. And then we wanted it forever. And then they finally came out with the second one. But I love her.
I remember the announcement. It was at the 2017 VG, the Game Awards, right? I think they announced it. So what is Chobits? Because I have that down here.
That's like one of the first like anime that like got me into anime. I was always really into...
I remember hearing about it in high school.
Yeah.
And people would say, that's right.
That was my high school anime years. Yeah, so...
People in high school used to tell me, you gotta watch Chobits, but I never watched it, so it sort of went to the back of my memory recesses.
I'd rather read it, honestly, but I've always really been to science fiction, and so that obviously turned into whatever I was looking into for anime and manga at the time. So that's definitely like a good beginner's anime. But it's basically about like robot.
You answered my next question.
Robot girls, kind of robots and gaining sentience and stuff like that. So they're supposed to be like companions for people, for humans. But then,
isn't that what kind of like Westworld is based off of?
That's what a lot of them are based off of. Okay. A lot of the ones I like are basically like sentient coming from AI.
AI is terrifying.
I love it.
Did you hear what what Elon Musk said about strobe lights in AI? He said that in a matter of years, I think 10 to 20 years, robots are going to be moving so fast that you'll need a strobe light to see them. and then after he said that, I think he was at a podium. After he said that, he leaned in and he went, "Sleep tight."
Oh, Jesus. He's messing with us. See, my favorite thing about that whole debate with like AI and like robots and stuff is basically they're going to is humans are supposed to be meant to work, right? So they're going to take away that and we're going to have all this time. And it's just like, what are humans supposed to do if they're not being productive? Yeah, if they're not in some way fulfilled.
Like, this is my second full-time job.
People are just going to pursue hobbies.
Content.
Yeah, they're just going to do stuff.
This is not a hobby. This is a job for me.
Yeah, but people are going to move towards being, like, I think, more expressive and creative with the help of robots.
So let's talk about this. Because that was you that wrote that down?
Ghost in a Shell.
Another one on top.
Oh, Eve no Jakan. Yeah. That's another anime I like. And it's kind of around the same topic of robot sentience. So basically, humans have robot companions / helpers that are supposed to like, they're like servants that kind of like follow them around or like help them out with everything. But then there's a society of ones that are sentient and actually want to become human and like want to get their rights. And it kind of goes into the question of robot rights. Do they get any? What are they?
That's just what we're talking about. That's a huge hot button issue today.
Which is crazy to think about, by the way, that like that's something that people can discuss. Yeah. But it's happening.
We're here.
This is the future.
Like Elon Musk said, sleep tight, everyone.
Oh my gosh.
So on my anime queue, or anime queue, depending on where you're from. Oh, I went to AAC last year, and one of the panelists was it was one of the voice actors. He welcomed everyone, and Ace is like really small, and he said, "Hey, welcome, konbanwa for all you people." He's like, "You people." So my anime queue is finished catching up on Food Wars, Shokugeki no Soma, which is one of the greatest animes I've ever seen in my life. Thanks everyone that's just joining us and that's liking and fanning. I love you all. So I just finished Food Wars Shokugeki no Soma, the most recent season. Incredible. You need to catch up on that. Assassination Classroom, #AskClass, which is a really good shonen, because it is a shonen, but it's great. It's got a lot of layers to it. There's a lot of moving parts. It deals with some social issues, some Japanese cultural issues as well. And the next anime on my queue, which I am so excited about, is Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid.
Aw, I've heard good things about that one.
Everyone says it's like one of the most incredible, lighthearted, dramatic comedies that they've ever seen in an anime, like ever. So there's supposed to be a lot of really funny, like little cute parts in it. So I'm really excited to watch that. And then my video game queue, obviously, Bayonetta 2 after I finish Breath of the Wild. And tomorrow, everyone, we're going to hear it here if you didn't know already. Tomorrow, Valkyria Chronicles 4 comes out. And
right.
I am so excited to do Anime World War II. You have no idea. But that's video games and anime for me. Right now, I'm stuck in the Monster Hunter loop because
that's what I've been doing. I just got Monster Hunter World on Xbox.
Oh my God.
A few days ago.
Xbox.
Okay. I only got Xbox One because I could afford it at the time when PS4 was too expensive. And now I'm just like, oh, damn. I could have done it. But
Xbox is the epitome of bro culture.
I know. But I had more friends who had it, so whatever. But yeah, I've been playing it a lot. I really like it. And I've also been doing, what else the other? Oh, Battlegrounds. I call it PUBG in my head.
Yeah, no, that my friend has been playing that as well too.
I made it to number 12. That's as high as I've gone.
So I'm putting on the outro music because we got about a minute left and then we're... But I just want to point out that we have some of the... So do you recognize this for our outro music?
Oh, yeah. Ooh. Classy.
Right. Do you recognize it?
Yeah.
Okay. So, ESP004, we are winding down. So this always stays up a few minutes after just because we get up and then we shut off the YouNow feed. But it's weird not having the video part up here because that's not rolling. It usually is. Mm-hmm. So we were not streamed on FRC Media Community Television today. I think they were missing one of the boxes or something. But we were on the radio, the FRC Media Radio. We were on YouNow, and then obviously the Tumblr, which links to the YouNow feed. So do you have any final thoughts? Valkyria Chronicles 4 comes out tomorrow. Anime Boston is the last week of this month. I will be there. I have a panel called Anime Boston. I have a panel called Trans in Japan Travel Guide Edition at Anime Boston, which I mentioned before on this one. So you can check that out if you're going. I'm cosplaying Sasaki the Mechanic from Knights of Sidonia. I'm going to recycle, I think, my Tatsumaki the Terrible Tornado cosplay, and then I'm doing Lieutenant Ortega from Altered Carbon.
Wow.
You should watch that. Altered Carbon was good. So, El Newman, take it away. What are you up to? Tell everyone what you're doing.
I'm just in nursing school, honestly. When I'm not stressing out about exams, I'm playing games and hanging out with my dog. I love my dog.
I love seeing the videos and everything you post of that dog.
And just fighting gender.
Your dog is the best. Fight the good fight.
Fighting gender.
Yes. Any upcoming projects you wanna throw down and mention? Plug?
Just follow me. You can follow me on Twitter. It's at Psychedelos. PSYKEDELOS.
Do it. Are you
Shout
coming?
out to all my furry friends. Furry fandom listening. Hey, anime and furry have to come together, okay? No, come back.
Oh, furries.
I know. We get a better rap.
So we usually wait until the actual, like that one part that kicks in. This was still one of the greatest animes of all time, by the way. Cowboy Bebop. I'll watch it all the time.
Every corgi has been named Ein.
Yeah. It did great things for corgis.
It got me into Space Dandy, and that's like one of my favorite animes.
Space Dandy? I'll have to look it up. I haven't heard of it.
Very psychedelic.
Yeah. Are you going to Anime Boston?
I don't know. I might stop by on Saturday.
Come by
it
and see my
depends.
panel. You can come up and talk with me if you want.
Depends on the it's a clinical weekend or not.
Oh yeah, that's right. So ESP 004, join us in 2 weeks for ESP 005, where we're going to have an actress on. An actress in World Traveler.
Wow.
Who's been to Ireland, England, Germany, and 2 other countries in Europe.
Wow.
She's been everywhere. She's an adventurer. And then she's an actress. She's working at getting her Screen Actors Guild card. So, join us for that one. Thank you for joining us, my lovely unicorns. I love you all. We will see you in 2 weeks. Thank you, everyone, so much for listening. Thank you for your continued support. We love you all. Eryn Spencer, Newman, signing off. Good night.